July 4 marks a special day for all Hunger Games fans. It's not only the day of the reaping in each district of Panem, but it's also the birthday of the Sunrise and the Reaping's main character, Haymitch Abernathy. To celebrate this pretty cursed day, Lionsgate released a new teaser for the Sunrise and the Reaping movie adaptation entitled Meet Haymitch. And in this video, we're going to go through this short clip to see more of this upcoming film. And with that said, let's get into it. The teaser opens up to the Justice Building in District 12, and we've seen this place multiple times in previous trailers, as this is where the reaping takes place every year. What's interesting though is that the place is empty, meaning that this shot must be what the place looks like before the reaping. If you look even closer in this shot, you'll see a poster that says Panem's #1 Peacekeeper, and it's not too clear here, but it's actually President Snow. This is because Snow actually served as a peacekeeper in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and now that he's president, he obviously wants to promote himself. After this shot, the trailer shifts to a moment we see in the first chapter of the Sunrise and the Reaping book. We see Haymitch's younger brother Sid Abernathy. Sid is played by Smiley Bradwell, and in this scene, he says the first line of the book.
Happy birthday, Haymitch!
And like in the book, he woke Haymitch up. In response, Haymitch tells Sid to go back to bed, and then we see Haymitch walk outside. Now, let's break this down a bit based on the book, because it's honestly very accurate so far. In the book, Sid also wakes Haymitch up by greeting him with happy birthday, but the teaser cuts off the rest of the dialogue. In the original scene, Sid continues, "You said be your rooster. You said you wanted to get to the woods at daylight." From this, it's clear that Sid is not only greeting Haymitch simply because it's his birthday, but also to wake him up. Haymitch had asked Sid to be his quote-unquote rooster so that he could get up at daybreak, and in the following paragraph, Haymitch explains that he wanted to finish his chores early so that he could spend time with his girlfriend Lenore Dove later that day, which is why we see Haymitch eventually leave the house to start working. The next scene we see takes place before the reaping itself. Like in the book, Haymitch and Lenore met up in the woods, and she asked the question,
Can you imagine the sun rising on a world without a reaping?
And hearing this line gave me chills, but there's a lot that happened before this took place. After Haymitch finished work in the book, he met up with Lenore, and they talked about the reaping. Haymitch tries to brush off what's about to happen, saying that it's going to be alright, even if he knows this isn't the case. In response, Lenore asked Haymitch, "You don't believe that, do you?" And Haymitch replied, "Maybe not, but I try to, because the reaping's going to happen no matter what I believe, sure as the sun will rise tomorrow." This eventually led to Lenore asking the question we saw in the teaser.
Can you imagine the sun rising on a world without a reaping?
In response, Haymitch said the same thing he did in the book.
Not on my birthday. Never had one that came without a reaping.
And this conversation about a sunrise and the reaping actually closes in the epilogue of this book when an older Haymitch is with Katniss Everdeen and Peeta Mellark after the events of the third Hunger Games book or Mockingjay. By this time, the games were over thanks to the rebellion with Katniss, and Haymitch reflects on this, saying that Katniss is the one who finally kept that sun from rising. Now, going back to the teaser, we see quick shots of the Peacekeepers, and this is them about to head to the Justice Building for the reaping ceremony about to happen. After this, the teaser briefly shows the Capitol train, or the same train that transports the tributes to the Capitol after the reaping, before we get a voiceover of Francis Lawrence, or the director of this movie. Francis directed 4 out of the 5 Hunger Games movies, and he went back to direct The Sunrise and the Reaping. In this teaser, Francis explains the basic premise of the movie. The story revolves around Haymitch's experiences during the second quarter quell, and how in this Hunger Games, there's twice as many tributes, meaning instead of the original 24 tributes, there's going to be 48 tributes this year. As Francis speaks, we see shots of the reaping ceremony, and then a very quick but noteworthy scene of this kid running away. We can't see much on who he is, but this might actually be Woodbine Chance. Woodbine was the second male tribute who was reaped, and instead of walking up to the stage, he actually tried to run away, but he was eventually killed, so this might actually be that scene. After this part, we also got the thoughts of producer Nina Jacobson. Nina explains the next part of the story. After Woodbine is killed, chaos erupts as his family rushes towards his body, only to be stopped by the Peacekeepers. Lenore Dove attempts to defend Woodbine's family, and this made Haymitch step in and try to protect her. This confrontation is what we see in the following shots, and from this moment, Haymitch defied the Capitol, and that's why they decided to use him as the next male tribute, and we actually see him get picked up by a woman named Drusilla Sickle, played by Glenn Close. Drusilla was the escort of District 12, and she decided to use Haymitch in the games. Standing beside her is a young Plutarch Heavensbee, played by Jesse Plemons. Plutarch is in District 12 here to document the reaping, which also explains why Drusilla tells Haymitch
Play this right or I'll shoot you myself.
she wants Haymitch to cooperate and present himself properly for the cameras recording the event under Plutarch's supervision. In response to this happening, we actually see Lenore Dove scream,
No! Take me instead!
as she's being taken away by peacekeepers after she tried to defend Woodbine's family. After this, we see Haymitch walk up to the Justice Building after getting reaped, as if Woodbine's death did not happen at all. And this was thanks to Plutarch's team editing the footage so that nobody would know the truth of what just happened. The scene then quickly shifts to the moments we saw in the previous trailer. We see the District 1 tribute Banosh Barker, played by Jaleel Swaby, and Panache and Haymitch get into a fight, which is a scene taken straight from the book. From this point, the teaser then shifts to a discussion on Woody Harrelson as Haymitch Abernathy. Woody played Haymitch in the original 3 Hunger Games films, and Nina Jacobson declared that Woody had a certain mischief whenever he portrayed Haymitch. And this is interesting because it also calls back to the persona that Haymitch used during his interview with Caesar Flickerman. Haymitch had used a lovable rascal image to get the capital citizens to sponsor him, and this actually helped him survive in his games. And speaking of Woody, the trailer then shifts to Joseph Zeta, or the actor who portrays Haymitch in this new movie. Joseph expresses admiration for Woody's portrayal of Haymitch, saying that it has been an intense experience stepping into the role.
Such a fan of his work. It's been intense being like Woody's Haymitch.
And as Joseph talks, we see a quick scene of Haymitch, Burlock Everdeen, and a girl who I didn't quite recognize at first, but it must be Astrid March. Burlock was Haymitch's best friend, and he would go on to marry Astrid March, and they would have 2 kids together named Katniss and Primrose Everdeen. Astrid, on the other hand, is played by Grace Ackery, and she was friends with both Haymitch and Burlock in this book and movie, which explains why they're together in this shot. After this, Francis adds more to what Joseph already said, saying that Woody's portrayal of Haymitch was very iconic and how it was very special to share the space with him. The conversation then shifts to Elizabeth Banks, who portrayed Effie Trinket in the original films, and her relationship with Woody Harrelson. Elle Fanning, or the new actress for a younger version of Effie, talks about this relationship, saying that their dynamic was so fantastic. And speaking of Haymitch and Effie, their relationship was kind of different when you compare the books to the films. In the books, they seem to act like co-workers who kind of put up with each other. Like, they don't hate each other exactly, but they don't get along as well as they do in the films. The films even hinted on a possible romance for the two, especially when Haymitch and Effie kissed in that one scene in Mockingjay, but this was entirely improvised by the actors and was never in the books. Then again though, most fans do agree that Haymitch and Effie were just friends and that this kiss was completely platonic, but I personally don't think Effie and Haymitch were that close to actually do this in the books. But just to go with the continuity in the films, Elle expressed how she and Joseph tried to incorporate this deep friendship whenever they did scenes together.
Our dynamic is so fantastic.
Show them we are a team.
Joe and I have tried to incorporate that. Go out there tonight and make them remember you.
Moving forward, we got a cool scene of Maysilee Donner and her twin sister, Marilee Donner. Maysilee is one of the District 12's female tributes, and this scene captures the moment her name is called at the reaping. Maysilee is played by McKenna Grace, and she talks about Haymitch as well. McKenna tells us that Haymitch wants to care about his fellow tributes, and as she says this, we see a sweet moment through a shot of Haymitch with his arm around Luella McCoy, portrayed by Molly McCann. Luella was the female tribute with Maysilee, and she was practically like a little sister to Haymitch, to the point that Haymitch even called her his sweetheart. We actually get a moment of Haymitch calling her sweetheart in a later scene when Luella asked Haymitch,
You meet till the end, right, hey?
To the end, sweetheart.
At this moment, both Luella and Haymitch are dressed in black, or the traditional color worn by District 12 tributes during the chariot parade to represent the district's coal miners. And this detail indicates that this scene takes place before Luella's tragic death during the chariot rides. After Luella's death, Snow replaces her with an unnamed girl from District 11 who bears a surprisingly striking resemblance to Luella. To distinguish the two, Haymitch nicknames the new girl Lulu, who is portrayed by Iona Bell. Because of this, Lulu went to the arena and Haymitch had to protect her after Wyatt Callow's death, which is what we see in this shot as McKenna Grace talks. After McKenna's section, the teaser highlights Haymitch's bond with his fellow tributes, Maysilee, Wyatt, Luella, and even Lulu. They explain how they're all together despite the horrible situation, as we see a scene of Haymitch, Maysilee, and Wyatt hugging. After getting a quick scene of Haymitch running in the arena, we got to hear the thoughts of Wyatt Callow's actor, Ben Wong. Ben explains how the film tracks Haymitch's loss of innocence and the ignition of his revolutionary spirit. And as Ben talks, we see an intense moment of Haymitch in front of a burning house as two people pull him back. On the left is Burdock, and on the right is Astrid. And this must be the heartbreaking scene of Haymitch witnessing his house on fire, and this fire actually killed both his brother and mother who were trapped inside. And then we see two shots we saw before. First is the chariot rides to present the tributes, and then Haymitch getting taken away by peacekeepers. This latter scene is most probably after the chaos that happened here, because the arena looks pretty wrecked, and Haymitch seems stunned because he just witnessed Luella's death. We then shift to Haymitch saying,
We're not animals to kill for their entertainment.
and this is almost exactly what Haymitch said to Maysilee, Wyatt, and Mags the morning after Luella's death. In the book, Haymitch had told them that he wanted to somehow tell people that he was there because the capital won the war 50 years ago and that they think this is the proper way to punish the districts, but that 50 years was enough. Maysilee then asked Haymitch how to end the games, and Haymitch said, I don't know yet. I guess for starters, by reminding the audience that we're human beings, the way they talk about us, piglets, beasts. They called my fingernails claws. You saw how those kids outside the gym looked at us, like they think of us as animals, and they think of themselves as superior, so it's okay to kill us. But the people in the capital aren't better than us or smarter. After this, we get a section for Plutarch Heavensbee's role in the book. In the original trilogy, we learn that Plutarch was part of the people working on the rebellion, but decades ago in The Sunrise and the Reaping, he was already working on the revolution with B.T. Ladiar. And speaking of B.T., we see him here sitting with Haymitch, and he's played by Kelvin Harrison Jr. As for Plutarch, we also get a segment with his actor, Jesse Plemons. Jesse praised Joseph's acting, even pointing out the fire that Joseph had inside him in the movie, and we get to see this in the next fast Haymitch scenes. And speaking of Haymitch himself, Joseph's voiceover tells us that working on this movie was life-changing. As he speaks, scenes like this beautiful look of the mountains and the sun, a shot with Haymitch and Ampert, and other behind-the-scenes camera angles play out, and they were all very cool to see. But the next scene was even better. We see our first look of Willamay Abernathy, or Haymitch's mother, with Haymitch, and this must be the scene before the reaping. Willamay is played by Kate Toyton, and after this moment, we get to see Lenore Dove and Haymitch walking together. Joseph continues talking, saying that the story really hits home as it reminds us that our involvement, no matter how significant it may be, has the power to change things over time.
And this story really hits home that your involvement, even as insignificant as you think it may be, has the power to change things over time.
After this, we also see scenes we already saw before, like Haymitch swimming for his life after going underground to destroy the arena, and then a shot of Haymitch in the mass funeral in District 12, wherein he does the signature three-finger salute from the original films. Interestingly, we also see other people do this salute, like Burdock and Astrid in this next scene, and this seems to be the same funeral as Haymitch. And from this moment, it then shifts to a scene from the Catching Fire movie with Katniss and Peeta doing the same salute. The teaser then uses a mix of the old films to the new movie before we do our final scene of President Snow saying, "May the odds be ever in your favor." But instead of saying the whole quote, he cuts himself off and gives Haymitch a smile. And then we see Haymitch's reaction to this through the stare that clearly tells us he's annoyed with Snow. And the trailer ends with the tributes running to the cornucopia. It's an absolutely epic moment. But overall, that's the most recent teaser we have right now. So how about you? What do you think of this teaser? Let me know in the comments down below.